This is the multiple award-winning GardenDC podcast, the podcast about everything gardening in the Mid-Atlantic region and beyond. I'm your host, Kathy Jentz. I'm the editor of Washington Gardener magazine. Our content is aimed at gardening enthusiasts, people who grow everything from edibles to ornamentals, natives to exotics. If it grows in our area, that's what we talk about. Welcome to episode 289 of the GardenDC podcast. In this episode, we talk with garden designer and blogger Lee Miller about landscape design combinations. The plant profile is on Japanese snowbell tree, and we share what's going on in the garden, as well as some upcoming local gardening events in the What's New segment. We close out with a last word on Peas Don't Like Me from Christy Page of Green Prints. This episode, we're joined by returning guest Lee Miller. She is a landscape designer and blogger and garden book author. Welcome back, Lee.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Good to have you on. Last time we had you on the GardenDC podcast was way back, episode 135, January 2023. You were talking about your new, at that time, book, Plants for Shade.
Correct. Well, I've been a busy lady since the shade gardening book, since I love to share my knowledge and passion of horticulture. I decided to go indoors. I have been growing plants indoors for over 40 years. It keeps me busy. I love it in the wintertime when everything outside is dormant, and I love it in the summertime as well. So what I decided to do is write my latest book called The Houseplant Guide, How to Easily Select and Maintain Indoor Plants. So now I'm branching out to other areas. I've also been doing a lot more garden speaking for local libraries and garden clubs and horticultural societies. And I just love talking gardening. Grab me aside and I can chat for hours.
Same, Lee, same. So for today's episode, we're going to talk all about one of your older titles, Landscape Design Combinations, but I think we're going to have you back on maybe this winter to talk about the Houseplant book.
Absolutely.
Anything else going on with you these days?
Really just designing gardens of clients, trying to make people happy, and when I have a moment, going out into my own garden and enjoying that as well.
Nice. And we all are like, the cobbler whose kids have no shoes, right? And our own gardens get the least amount of attention, it seems like. And I finally, usually by mid-June, I'm finally getting out into my own garden after, spending the whole spring in everybody else's gardens and touring and talking and everything. But that is the garden writer's life, right?
Exactly.
And you have to take those photos and get those interviews while the gardens look their best.
Right.
And so let's talk about how people can get those gardens looking great. And I think one of the, I would say, most common questions I get about landscape design is combinations, like, where do I plant it? How do I plant it? How do I know? And how do we make these decisions? It's all very visual, but we're going to try to tackle that on a podcast, Lee. So we'll try to describe as best as possible some of those principles and then maybe go into some of our favorite plant combinations. And I think your book, Landscape Design Combinations, is a great start. I'm going to include that link to it in our show notes. It's available on Amazon. And I was going to say, we'll first maybe talk about the elements of landscape design.
Okay, well, that's where we all begin. I feel one of the most important things in landscape design is having a garden with 12 months of interest. Whether it's summertime, spring, fall, or even in the middle of winter when the snow is coming down, to have something to look in your landscape. And the way I achieve that is by combining different colors and textures that complement one another. For example, one of my favorite combinations is blue glow spruce along with maybe a red weeping Japanese maple and then combining purples and yellows. For example, Salvia Maynight or Salvia Blue Bayou is a new cultivar, which is absolutely amazing. It blooms longer than any other salvia. It gets about 12 to 18 inches high. You complement that with the yellow of Coreopsis zagreb, and you're on opposite colors of the color wheel. So you've got the red from the Japanese maple, you have the blue clove spruce, you have the colorful perennials. Also, you can add in a little gold, and there's so many different types of golden shrubs you can put in there. Gold mop cypress, gold lace juniper, Pacific gold juniper. There's so many ways to combine, but the main thing is combining those different colors and textures and having your layers. Have your background, have your evergreen background for all season interests, then have your flowering shrubs, then put in your perennials and your lower ground covers.
Well, that sounds like a lot
It is.
to unpack there, Lee. So let's talk about those layers. So let's talk first about that evergreen background layer. So could it be like a solid wall of cypress, like Leland cypress, or a hedge? What are you talking about when you're saying that background layer of evergreens?
If the homeowner is looking for privacy, depending on the space, I would highly recommend green giant arborvitae over Leyland cypress anytime. The reason why, Leyland cypress is shallow rooted. It tends to get very leggy, and every single client I speak to, they're constantly shaving the thing back. While the green giant arborvitae stays more compact, does not lose its lower foliage, is less susceptible to disease, and go on and on. The Leyland was the old plant. The green giant is the new one. However, if you are looking for privacy and you are planting either one of those, you absolutely must give yourself at least 8 to 15 feet. Now, that's not doable for everybody. So if you have a narrow spot, use the emerald green arborvitae, which only grows to about 3 to 4 foot wide. Still gets 25 feet high, slower growing, but that would give you a narrow privacy screen. Or skip laurel. Skip laurel is a broadleaf evergreen. Gets little white flowers in spring. Grows to about, well, it can get pretty big, about 10 to 15 feet tall, but I maintain mine at the height of the fence, 5 foot, and it makes a nice filler. Those are the main recommendations: the green giants, the emerald green arborvitae, and the skip laurel.
And then that would be for a solid privacy screen, maybe from the street or for some neighbors. But if you had the luxury, Lee, of being able to just plant evergreens for beauty and ornamental use, would you do a solid uniform planting, or would you choose various evergreens?
I would choose various. Now, you don't always, I make a point of not trying to have solid. It depends on the situation, Kathy. If, say, somebody has a pool and they have a neighbor right behind them, then you do the solid green giants. But what I like to do is I like to mix maybe some, for the homeowner, put the green giants in the middle, or the emerald greens, and then cluster your your skip laurel, cluster your skip laurel in groupings of 3s or 5s on each side. You can also use holly. Oak leaf holly is a beautiful, beautiful tree. It's not spiky like some of the other ones, like the Nellie Stevens. You can mix that in. Then you start bringing in your lower evergreens, like your Osmanthus gossiki. I know I'm throwing out all these crazy names. The Osmanthus gossiki is a golden and green shrub that the new growth gets like a lighter pink. But you have the golds and the greens and the pinks and the dark greens. See what I'm getting at? I'm mixing different colors and textures together.
Yeah, I was going to say the goshiki is so beautifully, even as a specimen plant on its own. It gets that pink blush that you were talking about, but it also is wonderfully scented as well.
Yes, and Kathy, deer will not touch it.
Even better.
And it's disease resistant pretty much. I've never had an issue with it. And it can take sun or shade. So folks, Osmanthus goshiki. It's a good one.
Yeah, I think that's one of the top evergreen picks that I would recommend for any garden because it doesn't get too big, right? I would say what mature size 3 to 5 feet.
3 to 5 for the Goshiki. The Gold side gets bigger if you want a little bit higher, but the Goshiki, you do have to prune it though. I shape mine every spring after it pushes out the new growth, but you're right, it's more of a dwarf variety.
It would be more to the front of that evergreen border.
Correct.
And then that's your layers of evergreens. So you've got some taller, some shorter, but I'm imagining also you're mixing in different textures. And just because they're called evergreen doesn't mean they're solid green. And as we talked about with the osmanthus, it has a pink blush on golden leaves, but there are so many different shades of green. There's blue greens, there's ones with tinges of gold in them, some with tinges of red. How do you combine those in a pleasing way, Lee?
Well, usually I'll do the backdrop of the solid green, and then I'll put a cluster of the Goshikis, and then I'll use the blue gold spruce. Usually the blue gold spruce, that is picturing Colorado blue spruce, that blue color, but it's a dwarf globose form, and it only gets about 2 to 3 feet high. So I would do like the globe spruce by itself with the Goshiki, and then start mixing in gold lace juniper, gold mop cypress. I can give you a typical example. Let's do combining, say, for example, crepe myrtle with evergreens. I will do the crepe myrtle. Behind the crepe myrtle, I will put Rependens spreading yew, which is a dark green. So now, because you have the trunk of the crepe myrtle, now you have the dark green behind it. In front of it, I will put either gold lace juniper, which is a nice, it branches out. It has a nice freeform type of look. It's gold all year long, and that's at the base of the tree. Now, working on each side, now you can start bringing in your flowering shrubs, for example, spirea. There's a new type of spirea that it's fairly new, only the last couple of years. It's called Spirea candy corn. It's getting more popular in nurseries now, so homeowners can find it.
Yeah, I have that one, Lee.
It's beautiful. It's bright colored. You can't mix it. That goes with everything. I have mine with lamb's ear in front of it, with in the backdrop a Trombe's Centennial Japanese maple. Let me explain. It is an upright red Japanese maple, narrow. You can keep it more of a columnar shape. So I have that with the candy corn spirea behind that, and then the lamb's ear behind that. So I have my layers: the lamb's ear, and then the spirea is the second layer, and then the Japanese maple is the third layer. And that I look out my window every day, and I use it in my clients as well. That is one combination that will blow you away. Wow. The white, that spirea, that color, it looks like candy corn, and the bright red of the maple.
Nice. And so for distances, I think that's a lot of what people stumble with in planning their garden, is trying to figure out the mature size of the plant. You don't want to leave a bunch of bare mulch in between things, but then you also don't want to have it so crowded that they're just right on top of each other.
Right. You have to keep careful when planting. You do need to know the mature size of the plant. For example, if you buy, let's go back to the green giant arborvitae that gets 15 feet wide, you start planting those too close, you're going to have crowding over time. Spirea, you should be planting those a good 4 feet apart because they're going to eventually get big. So basically what I'm saying is when you first plant, you really should have some space between the plants. You don't have to have a whole bunch, but you need to have some space. So you have to plan. Perennials, that's another story. Perennials, I usually cluster in groupings. I keep them only 10 inches apart, approximately, and they will form a nice mass. It depends on what the homeowner is looking for. Some homeowners like a very full look. In that case, you can plant closer together. But once again, just keep in mind, don't put them right next to each other initially. Give them space to grow.
or else you're going to be
Pruning,
and pulling them out and pruning and pulling them out.
Right.
And then with the perennials, are you starting with quart size, gallon size? What are you starting with normally?
Normally 1 to 2 gallon.
Okay, so more fuller already.
Right. So I'm spacing them accordingly. If they're smaller, then you can put them closer. But figure, even if they're smaller ones, figure 8 inches maybe, because they are going to grow, and you don't want them competing too much. Plants are interesting creatures. They actually do compete with one another. They either help one another, or sometimes one will take things away from the other. So you want to give each one its space.
And with the shrubs, obviously depends on the mature size, but are you starting with 5 gallon, 10 gallon? What are you normally purchasing for those?
Normally 3 gallon or 5 gallon. Right. So they're a nice size initially. And they're also more developed. Now, if you get 10 gallon, now you're talking, you're already up to a big plant. Yeah.
So let's talk about the landscape design shapes. So if we're just looking purely at the shape of the plants, there's columnar that you refer to, which are the tall and straight, obviously like a Roman column. Weeping, my favorite category, Lee. I love a weeping tree, a weeping shrub, anything weeping I adore. Then there's the pyramidal, or so it looks like a tall open vase or pyramid shape. And then there's the opposite, where it's a vase, but it's wider at the top, narrow at the bottom. So I'm thinking like witch hazel, right, would be a typical vase shape. And then shrub, which is more like all around, low, round one.
Or with round.
And then oval or layered. So I'm trying to think of some samples of the layered shrub or tree look. Would that be like a Japanese maple, maybe?
I would say, like, for example, the Japanese maple could fit into it. I'm thinking the gold lace juniper.
Okay.
Because it layered, when I think of layered, I think of branching out in different directions. That one, or
maybe even dogwood and some of those smaller ornamental trees could be layered
dogwood.
Too. Yeah.
And you're weeping. Oh my goodness, weeping Norway spruce. People either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's low maintenance. You can buy at any size. That's the thing. A lot of people say to me, but it gets so big. Not necessarily. It depends on how the grower grows them. They train them. You can either get one that's only 4 feet tall that will stay small and kind of leap over, or you can get one that's been trained to grow 8, 10, 12 feet tall. So it's how you buy it. And every single one is so unique in its shape. There's no two alike. And it's low maintenance. It's pretty pest and disease free. And it's perfect where I use those. If you have the front of a house and you have a big window, you don't want to block the window. I'll put that beautiful weeping Norway spruce right there as a focal point. Well, there's weeping Japanese maple. Your Varescens is your upright Japanese maple, or the one that I had mentioned before, the red centennial, is an upright Japanese maple. It looks like a column. As far as other weeping trees, weeping white pine, gorgeous. They do get large. Do not put that in front of your bay window.
And those do kind of have those cousin it looks. So yeah,
the cousin it.
Yeah.
Weeping blue Atlas cedar.
Yes, that's a great one.
Another one. It gets huge. So don't be fooled when you buy these. Know the size they're going to get. But out of those three, between the weeping Norway spruce, the weeping white pine, and the blue Atlas cedar, the weeping Norway spruce wins every time as far as for foundation planting or front island bed. For a front island bed, you can actually use all three because you're away from the house.
That's a good point, Lee, about being away from the house, away from windows. You don't want to block views with evergreens, but then you do want some foundation plantings. So what are your recommendations for a foundation planting? So something that's up against the house, there's going to be a window every, 10 or 12 feet maybe, and then the front door, and then some more windows. That's your typical, right, cottage house.
Okay, boxwood. But when you're buying the boxwood, the best one that I've been using is green velvet. There's winter gem, which gets a little bit more wispy. There's green mountain, which gets green mountain is nice too, but the green velvet stays nice and compact. Color is beautiful all year long. Some boxwoods get kind of a little bit of a tone to them in the winter time, like a bronzing. Avoid common boxwood because that's the one that does that, and that's also the one that everybody says, "Oh, boxwood smells."
Yes.
Common boxwood smells, but the green velvet does not. Also, there's a beautiful variegated boxwood, which is the yellow and green combination. The thing about boxwood, it stays compact. It's slow growing. You can easily shape it. So I use that. For a shadier area, I use cherry laurel. You do have to be careful with cherry laurel, though. You have to watch for things like shot hole fungus. With our wacky weather that we've been having, with we had 29 inches of snow this past winter, so the snow was on top of those plants. They don't like a lot of moisture on them, so they can get that shot hole fungus or scale. So you spray them. We just keep an eye on them. But cherry laurel is a nice foundation planting. Osmanthus, I've been using that thanks to the Goshiki. I've been using that for a lot of foundation plantings for the simple reason we seem to be having a deer problem in our area. Actually, a lot of people are having deer problems, but also because of the because of the disease resistance and the color on it. It makes a beautiful backdrop.
Yeah, and
There's
you're
also
on
holly too. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say holly is another good choice, like the Japanese holly, especially if you have deer issues or boxwood disease issues. And you're on Long Island and similar conditions all throughout the mid-Atlantic, right? Except for especially deer pressure. And a lot of us are experiencing that, and you don't want to plant shrubs that are deer candy necessarily. Even if you don't have deer pressure right now, they're probably coming.
You don't want to encourage.
So with those shrubs, some plants get their mature height and size, and then it's just minimal pruning from there, and they're bred to be that, right? So they're bred to top out at 2 to 3 feet or 5 to 6 feet.
Right. That's why you want the green velvet. That's the one.
Yeah, and there's others that, some boxwood, the tendency is to be, a big hedge, and that's not the one you want to constantly be having to come back.
There is a very nice one, Kathy. If you're looking for something a little upright, this green mountain boxwood.
Yep, that is a nice one.
That's a nice one. Or you can get the variegated too, as well, the upright.
And I was going to say some of the Japanese holly, same, different forms and different shapes. So they're bred to be those shapes naturally, but they do need some maintenance to maintain those shapes, but not trying to have to fight them constantly to be the shape that you want them to be by selecting the right plant in the right location in the first place.
Right plant, right place.
And so with those boxwoods or Japanese holly as your foundation plantings, I'm imagining you're going to put perennials kind of at their feet or at the front of them. And what are some of the ones that you like, Lee?
Okay, let's go back to our layers. Picturing the front of the house. You have your boxwood or your cherry laurel or your osmanthus or maybe northern beauty. Holly is a nice one. That's the backdrop. Now you put your focal point. Hinoki cypress is very nice. Or a weeping Norway spruce. Then on each side of that, you can put your flowering shrubs, and you can also tuck in your perennials. So say, let's do boxwood in the backdrop, a weeping Norway spruce. Now on the left of the weeping Norway spruce, we can kind of curve out the bed. What's nice is to make a curvilinear bed. You have, go out your garden bed, bring it in closer towards the house, bring it back out again towards your walkway.
Mm-hmm.
Put a nice blue grove spruce by the walkway. So as you're coming up your walk to the entrance of your house, you see this beautiful blue grove spruce. Next to that, put salvia or nepeta, catmint.
Yep.
The purple. Then next to that, put some coreopsis. So you have the purple and the yellow, opposite sides of the color wheel. Now in front of your focal point, in the middle, I would recommend evergreen. That's what I usually do. So I pocket the perennials. So you have the perennials on the left of the focal point. You have the perennials on the right of the focal point. I also like to repeat. If I do the purple and yellow, I like to repeat that on the other side. Mm-hmm. Most people like symmetry.
Yes.
In front of the weeping Norway spruce or Hinoki cypress, whatever you're using, Japanese garden juniper. Low growing, medium green color, low maintenance. Either that or blue star juniper gives you the blue, or the gold Pacific juniper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the low spreading like golden junipers, but also the blue as a ground cover or a bottom layer there.
Right. So now you have your layers. You have your backdrop layer, you have your focal point, you have your perennials on each side, you have your evergreen in front, you have your blues. Makes a nice combination.
Mm-hmm. And I love that mugo pine. And I was just going to say that, so you were talking about the salvia or nepeta, and then like the coreopsis zagreb or another yellow. I was thinking about daylilies might be a great choice if you don't have major deer pressure, right?
Right, since they eat everything.
Yes.
Stella d'Oro.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's always a doer. Another yellow I was thinking about was yarrow. So there's some really nice yarrows.
Native.
Yep. And the moonshine, that's more on the pale yellow side. But or you could also do like a yellowy grass. So I'm thinking like a Japanese golden sedge, maybe.
Golden sedge or lily turf. Variegated lily turf that gets the purple flowers in fall.
The clumping one, of course. Not the running loriope.
No, not the green. The green spreads all over the place. This is the variegated loriope, and I use that in front of the blue grove spruce. So you have the blue and the yellow and the purple flowers. Yep.
GardenDC will be back after this short break.
Get low-maintenance alternatives to lawns with Ground Cover Revolution by Kathy Jentz. Reducing the lawn is among the biggest trends in homeownership, with an endless stream of homeowners looking for an eco-friendly alternative to a traditional turfgrass lawn. In the last few years alone, over 23 million Americans converted part of the lawn to a natural landscape, and now they're looking to do even more. The biggest challenge to adopting this new ideal of the perfect lawn? Knowing how and when to replace your turf, and which plants are the best ones for the job. Ground Cover Revolution is here with all the answers you need, and some you didn't even know you needed. Included are 40 in-depth profiles of plants that are perfect choices for replacing a grass lawn. There are options for sun, for shade, for dry and wet sites, and for various climates around the globe. There are choices that bloom, options that are evergreen, and selections that are deer-resistant. Kathy Jentz has also included an incredibly useful chart that gives you all the specifics on each of the 40 choices for quick reference and to make your ground cover selection process even easier. Whether you want to replace the entire lawn or just reduce the amount of land dedicated to turf, Ground Cover Revolution will help you usher in a new and improved idea of what a beautiful lawn should be. Ground Cover Revolution is available now wherever you buy books, including Amazon.com and Bookshop.org.
Mostly what we're talking about here, of course, is full sun. All the plants we pretty much discussed. I mean, the evergreens could go into some shade. But if you are north facing, maybe some more cooler colors, maybe some more shade tolerant plants. And I'm thinking for those front perennial combinations, maybe heuchera could be your gold, like some of the more yellow I'm trying to remember the name of it. It has like a caramel. Yes, I was thinking about like some of the ones that have the goldness to them.
I love combining caramel coral bells, Sakura, along with liriabe, the variegated liriabe, or the sedge, or hostas.
Yeah, and again,
nice combo.
If it's not too much deer pressure, then I think heuchera and even some of the gorgeous hostas, the bigger ones for a big statement.
Williams.
Yeah, those are really nice. And then if you do have deer pressure, not that deer aren't going to eat any hosta, but I find that, I don't know about you, Lee, but they tend to eat less or not go for first the hostas that have that really thick seersucker type leaf, like that really texture to them.
Right. The Frank Williams is kind of like that. And
Yeah.
the big blue too.
Yeah, the bigger, bluer ones tend to be, it's going to be their second choice, right? It's not going to be, they're still going to eat them eventually, but yes.
Right.
So let's talk about some of those other color combinations in the garden. So you're a big fan of the opposites on the color wheel. So that's your yellow versus blue, purple versus orange. That's the next one that I think is the most popular opposites combinations in the garden. So what are your favorite purple and oranges?
Coneflower, Russian sage, and liatris.
Oh, that is a wonderful combination, Lee. Yeah. And you've
got
like one. Yeah, it got so different shapes, with the liatris being a tall, thin, like spire, and the Russian sage is almost weepy, right? It's got kind of like weepy, loose habit. It has some upright and some, and I don't mind it falling over into the echinacea. And you're talking probably about the straight species echinacea, right? Coneflower.
Well, there's echinacea powwow, which I use a lot, and there's another one, Cheyenne Spirit, that gets, it's unbelievable. It gets different color flowers on the same plant. So, on one plant, and it changes year to year. You can get orange, yellow, red flowers, beige. You can get all different color flowers on the same perennial.
Yeah, and there are the orangey more tones for the new cultivars of echinacea too. But I was also thinking about some of the rudbeckia that are being bred now that are shorter, broader, darker yellow into the orange tones. Some of them are two-toned. They almost look like blanket flower to me, don't they, Lee?
They look kind of like Gaillardia, but they're also, they're less invasive. I think it's called Rudbeckia. I believe it's called Golden Star. It's a dwarf variety, and it really, I've had it for years, and it really doesn't spread like the original cultivar. So that's a nice one too. You can put that with the coneflowers. Yeah,
I think that would be great. And speaking of Gaillardia, that's a good orange. And I was thinking about a good purple to put with that. Do you have any suggestions?
How about Veronica?
Oh yeah, that's a great choice. So Veronica, and I was also thinking about Caryopteris, the blue, it's more almost dark blue than purple sometimes.
It's more of a dark blue. That would be nice too.
But yeah, that tends to almost go purple, and I think Caryopteris would be a nice small shrub to put up against with Gaillardia as well. And they both love full sun, and they're both pollinator magnets too. And so our next, the opposite color wheel combination are the greens and reds, which is of course your classic Christmas color scheme. And so that's why it pops so much at Christmas, but that's because we're doing evergreens with like red berries, right? So that's your classic opposites. So the red against green, you probably already addressed pretty much with our layering, because you were talking about doing a dark-leaved holly with a Japanese maple that has a reddish leaf to it. So there's your classic red and green combination.
There's also, which I've been using the last couple of years, it's called Rhode Island Red Japanese Maple. It's not a weeping. It looks more like a round shape.
Interesting.
It's really nice. Right. If you don't like the classic weeping look, and that looks beautiful as a focal point in the garden with boxwoods behind it, and then put in all all your perennials, and then your low growing evergreens. That looks nice.
Yeah, and the great thing about, we were talking about maybe some of the shade combinations, like with heuchera and hostas, is that there's so many different colors of heuchera now. So you've got like dark burgundy, so that can be your red against green as well.
Palace purple.
Especially Palace purple, and then you can stick something else like Japanese Hakone grass, the Hakone Cloa, which is, I would call it gold, but borderline chartreuse even.
That's a nice one.
Any other shade combinations for that big contrast that you can think of?
I like bringing in white too. Like I've done shade gardens with 3 hydrangeas, and then I do my layers again. I'll have my backdrop of the evergreen. I'll have the tree, like 3 tree hydrangeas, and then in front of that we have to watch we're talking hydrangeas and yews, but I'll have the spreading yews, and then I'll have the coral bells with the sedges or the lily turf and the hostas, and combine all that together. So the white looks really nice in the shade. And I'm trying to think of there's different. Dusty Miller, that needs sun though, but it'll take some shade, but.
There's more like Senecio can take a little bit, but that again, most of the silver leaf plants want a lot of sun. Yeah. But I was thinking about white flowering shade loving perennials, say like a stilbe. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can pick the white flowering versions instead of the pink or the purple ones, or you can have a combination, right? Or you can go with, when you were mentioning the tall tree form hydrangeas, I was thinking about our native smooth hydrangea that's blooming for me right now, Lee. And so I have I think it's called Bride, now I'm missing the name of it. Yeah, but that one's really a really high white.
Fairy Trail Bride?
I
have one too.
That one is really nice. And then some of the smooth hydrangeas being bred now have a lot of pink in them, but you can go for the more white side of things in the shade with those.
Bobo hydrangea and Firelight Tidbit.
Oh yeah.
It gets that pinkish hue as the season goes on.
Yeah, Fairytale Bride, that cascade is nice. But I was thinking about some of the shade shrubs that are kind of ignored, right? Because they're more like background plants, and or they're part shade to part sun. So white blooming azalea, right? So a lot of people use azaleas for their foundation plantings. Yeah, rhododendrons, abelia, and Deutzia. I find I can get that to bloom in part sun. It doesn't need as much sun as people think.
How about this one's underused? Locosi.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice too, and it has that nice shiny leaf, right?
Has a shiny leaf.
Yeah.
Broadleaf evergreen. Gets a little white insignificant. Well, actually not so insignificant flowers in the springtime. It gets the white blooms on it, and there's different varieties. I like Auxilis because I just find it to be the hardiest out of all of them. The foliage is green, but then the new growth gets reddish, pinkish tints to it. There's also Rainbow, which that does pretty well, and that has more of the variegation in the leaf. But it's an overlooked, underused plant. And whenever I show them to someone, that's such a beautiful plant. Why don't I ever see them? And it's perfect for the shade garden.
Yeah, and I was just looking at the different, we were talking about heucheras, but different tiarellas. So you get that beautiful kind of white flower, but when the flower fades, it kind of gets, I don't want to call it, maybe bronzy is a good description. And so that lasts all fall. So that does bring up, the 4 seasons of the garden. And you were talking about at the beginning, having something in bloom or of interest every month of the year in the garden.
Right. And the heucheras, Kathy, depending on the variety, the ones that we're mentioning, the Palace Purple and the Caramel, they really never die all the way down. They stay throughout the winter, especially the Caramel.
Yeah.
I have to just remove some of the crispy leaves in the spring when it's pushing out new growth, but you see those all winter.
I find the same, that I just have to make sure that they don't heave too much out of the soil, right? Maybe
Right, you
give
have
them a
to
little
watch
more,
that.
give them a little more, mulch around the base, maybe push
Mm-hmm.
them back in if they do push out because of the freeze-thaw cycle, if we have a bad
Right.
winter. But otherwise, yeah, they're pretty much evergreen for me.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of evergreen and in the shade, of course, we have all of the hellebores. Do you like to use hellebores in your shade gardens, Lee?
My goodness. Yes. I have Shooting Star, which is more of a pink. I have Champion, which is more of a yellow. I have Dark and Handsome, which is purple.
Yeah, I love that.
Um, and Merlin, yes, which is another one that's kind of a pinkish color. I love them, and they bloom from January to
Mm-hmm.
each one. They go in sequence. First the Shooting Star, then the Merlot, then the Champion, and then the Dark and Handsome.
Yeah.
Love them, and they're evergreen. And all you have to do is remove some of the winter burn leaves, so you can see the blooms there. But I'm glad you brought that one. That's a great plant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like it's a good backbone plant, especially
Mm-hmm.
under large shrubs and tall trees, and because it is pretty deer-proof.
Mm-hmm.
I also like to combine it with bulbs. So I'll have my spring minor bulbs, maybe around the skirts of the hellebores, or I was going to say daffodils sometimes, especially the autumn daffodil. But what are some of your favorite bulbs to use in combinations with your layers?
I love hyacinth and crocus. And speaking of bulbs, it is a bulb, allium.
Mm-hmm.
Ornamental onion, allium globemaster produces 8-inch round purple lavender blooms on 2 to 3 foot stalks. I have those. They come up in the garden every year around May. They're blooming now. They're gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
They come up in May through June. And around the base, I plant Stella d'Oro daylily for the simple reason when the foliage dies back on the globemasters, I have the flowers now. The daylilies are starting to bloom while the foliage is dying back on that. Talk about combinations. And then I will leave the globemasters all the way through the fall because even when they dry out, you have these stalks of dried flowers that look like little giant pom-poms, and it's beautiful. So I leave them in there until they're ready to fall over. There's another bulb called Allium Millennium, which I put in the garden. But your springtime bulbs, I go with the daffodils. I go with the hyacinths. That's a nice combination there. And like I said, the mass out the crocus.
Mm-hmm. And the great thing about those bulbs that you named, Lee, the hyacinth, Dutch hyacinth, especially daffodils, and the ornamental alliums, deer-proof, right?
Mm-hmm.
They might take one bite, but they're going to spit it out.
They won't take that. And then there's tulips, of course, but everything likes tulips.
Everything likes tulips. But
I tried tulips.
Yeah.
They gave up.
Yeah, I would say tulips in containers or where you can protect them or spray them, or in combination with some of the things that deer don't like is always a good idea. And I do second your definite endorsement of ornamental alliums, and they can look so cool even when they're not in full bloom and you just got that cool shape. The Schubert eye is one I love as well. It looks like a giant Sputnik just sitting on the ground in your garden. Some people will spray paint them with like floral spray paint to keep the colors on their ornamental alliums, or you can just let them, like you said, dry naturally and have that cool look to them too.
Or sparkles.
Yep. You go through some, nothing's stopping you from putting some glitter on them. Yep. And maybe not in your compost pile, but yes.
No.
But I do love those. And I'd say that, bulbs reward you because they come back every year. You might need to replenish and divide them every few years, but otherwise they're kind of set it and forget it.
Right. Mine, I started off with 3 and now I think I'm up to 12.
Wow. That's really
great. They multiply.
Mm-hmm.
You know what we haven't mentioned? Peonies.
Yes, one of my favorite plants of all time. And I was going to ask you, Lee, peonies can be they're usually 1 month, if that, of interest in the garden.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And is there any combination you recommend, because they only have that one showboat time and then the rest of the year they're kind of meh?
Mine are next to Swellmount Mugo Pine, Evergreen, and Salvia.
Okay.
Because I have Peony Bartzella. It's a hybrid combination between a shrub peony, a regular peony, and a tree peony. You don't have to stake it, and the blooms are gigantic. So that with the yellow and the purple. I also combine Carl Roosevelt, the bright pink. With I have a thing. I love the purples and the pinks and the purples and the yellows, but it's a nice combination. Salvia just seems to go with everything.
Yep. Yeah, and if you're not a big salvia fan for whatever reason, you mentioned Nepeta. The catmint is a good choice, but also Calamantha is a very similar plant to Nepeta, so that can be a nice blue filler. I was trying to think of some other good blue filler plants that are similar shape and size. So there's some like low growing mounding ones, like even lobelia as an annual, or you could throw some other blue type annuals in there too.
Right. Well, Pulmonaria, well, that's a shade plant.
Yeah,
Pulmonaria.
More on the shade side of things. Yeah.
Trying to think of some more. Well, why couldn't you put Blue Star Juniper in front of it?
And those are great ones. So, Lee, how can our listeners contact you to find out more?
I am all over the place. I am on Substack. I put out a monthly newsletter. Just look up Lee Miller Gardening, leemiller.substack.com. I'm also under A Guide to Northeastern Gardening, and that is on Blogspot. Best thing you can do, because I'm also on Facebook. If you type in Lee Miller Gardening on Google, I will come up everywhere, and you can find all my. Or you can type in A Guide to Northeastern Gardening. That's my main blog, and I post twice a month. The first is usually some kind of feature plant or what's going on in the garden or some botanical garden. And then on the 15th of the month is our Garden Bloggers Bloom Day, where we post our gardens and everybody posts gardens and you can see what's going on every single month of the year. That also has links to my books on Amazon and where books are sold. And it also has links to the Substack, and you can just branch off. Like I said, I love to write. I love to talk gardening. And my favorite quote in the whole wide world is, "Into the garden I go to lose my mind and find my soul." And that's me.
Wonderfully. So we'll put a link to that website and to your Landscape Design Combinations book in the show notes. And thank you so much, Lee, for sharing some of your knowledge and wisdom about design combinations. And I'm sure listeners out there have been inspired to get out in their garden and maybe move some things around or add some new additions to their gardens.
Well, thank you, Kathy. It's been fun chatting. I hope the listeners have learned quite a bit from this. There's no mistakes in gardening. Just go ahead and just do it and enjoy yourself.
GardenDC will be back after this short break.
In the book The Urban Garden by Kathy Jentz and Terry Spate, you'll find dozens of inspiring and creative ways to grow flowers, shrubs, vegetables, herbs, and other plants in small spaces and with a limited budget. Whether you want to grow on a balcony, rooftop, front stoop, or a tiny urban patio, turn your growing dreams into reality and build a gorgeous and unique garden that showcases your personal style while still being functional and productive. With the genius ideas and resourceful tactics found here, you'll be maximizing yields and beauty from every square inch of your space. No matter what you grow, the 101 amazing growing ideas found in the urban garden will turn your tiny urban yard into a treasure trove of green you'll be proud to share with family and friends. Buy your copy today at your local retail bookseller or order it online now at Amazon.com or bookshop.org.
Styrex Plant Profile. Japanese snowbell, Styrax japonicus, is a beautiful deciduous small tree that's known for its ornamental bell-shaped flowers that hang in clusters beneath its branches. The fragrant flowers are white or pink and bloom in late spring. It's also known as silverbell's tree. The blooms are followed by interesting-looking fruits that persist for months and are loved by songbirds. These fruits resemble dangling egg-shaped earrings. They're not edible for humans, but can be used in craft projects. The tree's peeling bark texture also offers winter interest. It's native to Japan and other parts of Asia. Styrax is hardy to zones 5 to 9. It prefers to be planted in the full sun to part shade in acidic, moist, but well-draining soil. This small tree or shrub has a vase shape that matures to more of an umbrella-like silhouette. Styrax attracts bees, hummingbirds, and other pollinators. It is deer-resistant. It is somewhat salt-tolerant and is a good choice for a slope or hillside garden. Styrax, you can grow that. What's new in the garden this week? Well, I'm enjoying the blooms on my spirea shrubs. Clematis virana is finally starting to bloom, and the larkspur is looking beautiful. Over at the community garden plot, I'm picking blackberries finally, and also a few late peas. In garden tips that we shared this week on our social media, we talked all about mosquitoes, including to prevent mosquito bites while sitting or working in the garden. A fan is a highly effective natural way to deter mosquitoes because they are weak flyers that cannot navigate even in gentle breezes. Please vote for our show, the GardenDC podcast, at bestof2026.washingtoncitypaper.com. Go under the Arts and Entertainment category and fill in Best Local Podcaster, GardenDC. The deadline to vote is June 10th, 2026. Thank you so much in advance. In local gardening events, if you're in the DC area, you might want to go to the U.S. Botanic Gardens Heirloom Collard Seed Saving Drop-In Demonstration. That's on Wednesday, June 17th from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. This is for all levels, and Lola Bloom, Urban Agricultural Education Specialist, will be demonstrating the tradition of seed saving with heirloom collards from the U.S. Botanic Gardens Kitchen Garden. This is a drop-in experience and will be repeated several times over the course of the designated program time. They'll talk about the significance of heirloom plants in our gardens and techniques for growing enough seed to last you for many seasons. Then on Saturday, June 20th from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. at Green Spring Gardens in Alexandria, Virginia, is Magical Botany, Science to Story. Discover fascinating plant properties, fragrant herbs, colorful petals, and more that have inspired magical stories. The fee to attend this is $18 per person. You can register online at fairfaxcounty.gov/parks. And you'll create your own magical potion using plant elements in a creative activity. And then on Saturday, June 27th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon is University Park in University Park, Maryland, annual Meadow Day. This is hosted by the town. This is an all-volunteer free event, and it will take place at the University Park Up Native Wildlife Pollinator Meadow on Adelphi Road near the Hyattsville Library. This event features family-friendly activities and entertainment. You can find out more about that at upmeadowday@gmail.com.
This is Christy Page with the last word on Peas Don't Like Me by Pat Stone with Green Prints. Peas don't like me. Why? What did I do? Peas don't like me. I mean it. It's not my fault. I like them. There's nothing more symbolic of early summer gardening success than grazing along a row of twining pea vines, pulling open a fat, round pod and popping those fresh green pearls of flavor into your mouth. No, sir, I like garden peas just fine, but they don't like me. There are plenty of people who don't like certain vegetables. George Bush doesn't like broccoli. Babe Ruth never cared for asparagus. Me? I wouldn't be upset if every Brussels sprout plant went the way of the dinosaurs. Newsflash, mysterious asteroid strikes planet, spreads fine dust toxic to all Brussels sprouts. So I guess it's not unfair if once in a while a vegetable turns around and decides it doesn't like some humans. Peas have certainly done that with me. For me, they just won't grow. It doesn't matter if I plant them early or late, deep or shallow, if I water them with clockwork regularity or leave their moisture to the skies. Why, I can go uphill, set them pea seeds in the gardens, rush home and lay down my own seeds that same afternoon. A month later, the acres have a living hedge rapidly kazooing its way up the chicken wire. My vines are frail and thin as the hair on a balding scalp. It's not fair. Why do they pick on me? What have I ever done to them? All right. There was the summer after high school when I worked 12 and 24-hour shifts to help harvest farm-sized fields of peas. Sure, I said a few things about them that summer, say at 3 o'clock in the morning when my tractor broke down in the middle of a damp, night-black field, or when some of the lifetime migrant workers would burst drunk and rowdy back into our 20-bunk barracks just when I was falling asleep. Or when I'd smell that unremovable green pea grime that had filled the crevices of my fingerprints. But that was decades ago. Surely the peas don't remember that. And it can't be all those canned peas my mother force-fed me in my youth, limp, lifeless, round that tasted like the moist droppings of a swamp creature. My sister cleverly hid hers in her napkin, but her less inventive kid brother, me, actually ate them, fighting all the while my system's urge to instantly return them to the plate. That shouldn't count. I was just a kid then, and those were canned peas. My wife thinks I should stick to corn, beans, tomatoes, vegetables that cotton to me just fine. But I don't want to concede that peas and I will never get along. I guess I'm hoping they'll eventually outgrow their dislike of me. Maybe if I start to shave real close, try to dress a little more neatly, drop the slang and occasional inappropriate expletive from my speech, I'm going to keep on trying. After all, I have feelings too. This has been The Last Word from greenprints.com.
Thank you for listening to GardenDC. This episode was made by real humans. It was produced and hosted by myself, Kathy Jentz. The Let the Sunshine music interludes are by James Mulvaney. If you like this episode, you may also enjoy listening to GardenDC Podcast, Episode 135, Plants for Shade, Episode 111, Flower Combinations, Episode 102, Annual Combinations, Episode 72, Low Maintenance Gardening. You can become a listener supporter by going to the link in our show notes. Another way to support this podcast is to subscribe to our monthly digital publication, Washington Gardener Magazine. To do so, go to WashingtonGardener.com or WashingtonGardener.blogspot.com. You can find Washington Gardener on Twitter or X, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Pinterest at WDC Gardener, and on Facebook at Washington Gardener Magazine. And be sure to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast listening app. Please take a moment to share us on social media with hashtag GardenDC and with your gardening friends so other gardeners can find us too. Happy gardening!